Your grammar is perfect. Your vocabulary is extensive. You've studied English for years, maybe even decades. But when you speak to native English speakers, something feels off. They smile politely, they nod, they understand you completely. But there's this subtle discomfort in their eyes, a tiny hesitation before they respond. You're doing everything right, according to every textbook you've ever read. But somehow, you're making them feel uncomfortable. And here's the thing that no English teacher will ever tell you. Perfect English is exactly what's making you sound wrong. I've been teaching English to non-native speakers for over 15 years, and I've helped more than 8,000 students from 47 countries achieve natural fluency. But it wasn't until I moved to London and started really listening to how natives actually speak that I discovered something shocking. Every single rule I was teaching my students was making them sound like robots. The grammar was flawless, the pronunciation was textbook perfect, but they sounded nothing like the people they were trying to communicate with. Today, I'm going to show you the 3 hidden reasons why your perfect English makes natives uncomfortable. And more importantly, how to fix it without throwing away everything you've learned. If you've ever felt like natives treat you differently, even though your English is technically correct, you're not imagining it. If you've noticed that pause before they respond, that slight shift in their body language, that overly polite tone they use with you but not with each other, you've experienced exactly what thousands of my students have described. You're caught in what I call the perfect English trap. You're speaking English so correctly that you've actually stepped outside the boundaries of how the language naturally flows. It's like wearing a perfectly pressed suit to a casual barbecue. Nothing is wrong with it, but it makes everyone else feel overdressed. Now, here's what most English teachers will never tell you about natural speech, and this is going to completely change how you think about fluency. Native speakers break grammar rules constantly. Not because they don't know better, but because natural English has evolved far beyond the formal rules you find in textbooks. When you speak with perfect grammar all the time, you're essentially speaking a version of English that natives only use in very specific, formal situations. Imagine someone speaking to you in your native language using only the most formal, textbook version. You'd understand them perfectly, but you'd feel like they were either being sarcastic, trying too hard to impress you, or treating you like you were in a business meeting instead of a normal conversation. Let me give you a concrete example that will make this crystal clear. A student of mine, Elena from Romania, used to say things like, "I would appreciate if you could please tell me where the restroom is located." Grammatically flawless, polite, completely correct. But natives don't talk like this. They say, "Where's the bathroom?" Or, "Excuse me, bathroom." The extra words, the formal structure, the careful politeness actually creates social distance. Elena was signaling that she saw herself as an outsider, and natives unconsciously responded by treating her like one. The moment she started using contracted forms, informal grammar, and everyday phrases, everything changed. People became warmer, more relaxed, more welcoming. Wait, before we continue to the second reason, I need to show you something that's going to surprise you about pronunciation. You might think that perfect pronunciation is always better, but here's what researchers discovered when they studied how natives actually respond to non-native speakers. When your pronunciation is too perfect, too crisp, too carefully articulated, it creates what linguists call uncanny valley effect. You sound almost native, but not quite. And that almost, but not quite, triggers a subtle psychological discomfort. It's the same feeling you get when you see a robot that looks almost human, but something feels off. Your brain knows something isn't quite right, even if it can't identify what. Native speakers don't pronounce words perfectly. They mumble, they slur words together, they drop sounds, they use lazy pronunciation that would make your English teacher cry. When you pronounce every word clearly and distinctly, you're not sounding more native. You're sounding like a news anchor or a language learning app. Real English is messy. Going to becomes gonna. Want to becomes wanna. What are you becomes watcha. Did you eat yet becomes jeet yet. This isn't lazy or incorrect. This is how English actually works in real life. When you resist these natural contractions and reductions, you're fighting against the natural rhythm of the language, and natives can feel that resistance. Now here's the third reason, and this is the one that most people never consider. Your perfect English might be making natives uncomfortable because you're not making mistakes. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. When natives talk to each other, they make tiny errors constantly. They start sentences and restart them. They say and like and, you know. They search for words, they correct themselves mid-sentence, they trail off and let the other person fill in the gaps. This isn't imperfect English. This is human communication. When you speak without any of these natural hesitations and corrections, you sound rehearsed, artificial, like you're reciting lines from a script. Just yesterday, a student from Brazil messaged me about exactly this issue. She said she'd been practicing English for presentations and job interviews, speaking very clearly and formally. But when she tried to make friends with her coworkers, they seemed polite, but distant. The breakthrough came when she started intentionally adding natural hesitations, using filler words like actually and you know, and allowing herself to search for words occasionally instead of having everything perfectly planned. Suddenly, her coworkers started inviting her to lunch, including her in casual conversations, treating her like one of the team instead of like a visiting professional. Now, here's the advanced technique that most English teachers will never show you because it goes against everything they've been trained to teach. You need to strategically add imperfection to your English. This doesn't mean speaking incorrectly. It means speaking humanly. Use like as a filler word occasionally. Say when you're thinking. Start a sentence, pause, and rephrase it slightly. Use I mean to clarify or correct yourself. These aren't mistakes. They're social signals that you're a real person having a real conversation, not a language learning robot delivering perfectly constructed sentences. Be careful here. The biggest mistake people make when they learn about this is overcorrecting. Don't suddenly start saying like every other word or mumbling so much that people can't understand you. The goal isn't to sound sloppy, it's to sound natural. Think of it like seasoning food. A little salt makes everything taste better, but too much ruins the dish. Start small. Add one actually or you know per conversation. Use gonna instead of going to in casual settings. Let yourself pause naturally instead of rushing through every sentence. The magic happens in the subtle details, not dramatic changes. Remember, you don't need to throw away everything you've learned. Your grammar knowledge is valuable, your vocabulary is an asset, your careful pronunciation training has given you a solid foundation. But fluency isn't about perfection. It's about connection. Native speakers aren't judging you for having an accent or making small mistakes. They're responding to whether you feel like someone they can relate to, someone who's part of their linguistic community, someone who speaks their language not just correctly, but naturally. The goal isn't to sound like you were born speaking English. The goal is to sound like yourself, speaking English comfortably and authentically. So let's recap the 3 hidden reasons why perfect English makes natives uncomfortable. First, overly formal grammar creates social distance. Second, too perfect pronunciation triggers an uncanny valley effect. And third, speaking without natural hesitations and corrections makes you sound artificial rather than human. The solution isn't to speak worse English, it's to speak more human English. Start with small changes. Use natural contractions. Add appropriate filler words. And allow yourself natural pauses and corrections. Your goal is connection, not perfection. If this opened your eyes to a new way of thinking about English fluency, there's another aspect of natural communication that even advanced students struggle with. It's about the rhythm and melody of English that textbooks never teach. The way natives use stress, intonation, and timing to convey meaning beyond just words. I'll show you exactly how to master this hidden layer of English communication in the next video. It's the final piece that brings everything together and makes the difference between sounding like you're speaking English and sounding like English is just flowing through you naturally.